Hi everyone, Bandanner here. I hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you're new. So, a long time ago I made a series of videos playing against the AI as sort of explainers and tutorials for new players to Warno. Now, those videos I did with a particular division, and that division underwent significant changes during the development of the game in early access. As a result, it is no longer the same, and you cannot build it how I built it, as well as various other changes to weapon ranges and things like that. For some things it still does have. So after a few comments noting this, I thought, well, maybe it's time to revisit those videos. But this time we'll do things a bit differently. For this first video, we're going to use the 8th Infantry Division. This is one of the base game divisions, and I'll be sticking to those, so you don't have to have any DLC to sort of follow this. I'll also change up the maps and the divisions as we play. So for today, we'll be using the 8th Infantry, and we'll start on the same map I used before, which was Death Row, as it's very straightforward. But as we progress through the more difficult AI, I will choose different divisions, and I will choose different maps. And therefore you can get a varied idea of what's available and how you can play. Obviously, this is going to be aimed at those who are just picking up the game or are a bit stuck having picked up the game already. If you're an experienced player, then it's probably not going to be much help to you, because I won't be using any advanced tactics here, and I won't be trying to necessarily explain how to play versus other players, as players play very differently to the AI. So, getting it out of the way now, this is focused on playing against the AI and sort of getting a grasp of how to set up your units and things at the start. But playing against players is very different, and your strategies would differ significantly if you were playing in ranked, for example. And I'm not going to go into any of that here. So, we're sticking with this division, which I've already built. I'll leave it on the screen so you can have a look at it, and I'll make sure the deck code is down in the description of the video. But I won't go through building that deck. What I will say is, if you're interested in seeing some deck builds and me talking through this, then I can do a new video on that. And the same applies to other things about the game, such as what's on unit cards. We could do a video on that. But let me know in the comments if you want this stuff, because obviously I don't want to spend hours making it if it's not going to be beneficial to people. So, let's go back here. We will leave it on very easy, just so we aren't basically worrying about the AI at all. It's not going to do a huge amount of very easy, but at least we can talk through what I'm doing. The AI has already picked the 25th Tank Division. That's absolutely fine. I'm not really bothered about that. So let's get into it. We're on Death Row, the 4-player version, so it's a good sized map. And we haven't changed any of the other default settings. Okay. So, pretty straightforward map. For those who haven't seen it before, it's just a straight path to the enemy. There's no going off to the sides too much or anything like that. There are 2 big areas of forest at each edge of the map. The AI won't really bother with those. Most human players don't really bother with those most of the time. So you can pretty much ignore that. Your focus should be the center, Echo and Alpha, and also Foxtrot and Charlie. This is where most of the combat will happen. Obviously, there are roads down the side of the map, like here, which you probably want to cover and just make sure the enemy doesn't send anything down that way. So, there's a few things to be aware of when you're setting up a defensive line. You're wanting to think where your units can get to compared to the enemy. Now, with time, you will understand which divisions get forward deployment. Now, a quick explanation of that. Forward deployment is this. So, most units can just deploy in this initial box. But some units with recon, for example, the recon trait, they can go all the way up here. Okay, so this is a recon unit, and it can be deployed way outside the box. And then paratroopers can be deployed even further forward, like so. Now, some divisions get a lot of these forward deployment troops. And therefore, they're going to beat you to the middle. The AI will also do that just as a human player would, but we're not going to worry about it too much today. Our intention is just to wall off the center if we can. Now, when I say wall off the center, I would like to get into this area here. I would like to get into this area, and I'd like to get into this area. I'm not going to worry about here for the time being. My opponent will get there first, and I don't want to risk losing units by trying to get them in there. So we're going to just try and build a wall straight across. Now, in terms of what you're going to put in buildings and things, you kind of want to be thinking about putting long-range ATGM troops in there, and perhaps some recon units so you can see what's going on. If I hold C while hovering over this building, you can see the line of sight from that building. Pretty decent. If I was to do it on this building, you will note that there is a big omission. So I believe this was changed at some point in the past when they edited the map, and they put a building in which has a huge container there. And apparently your teams would not lay anyone on top of that, so you can't see past it. So this building obviously is better overall in most situations. Now, the first thing I like to do is put down recon. So I'm just going to remove these units and we'll start over. That was just to demonstrate the forward deployment. Sniper teams are very useful. They are very small. They have the sniper trait, so they get a bonus to damage when they're not moving. However, they're only two-man squad, so they die very quickly. So this is something to bear in mind. So as much as they are quite effective against infantry, they are obviously at significant risk of being killed. Now, I would like to put them over here. So I'm actually going to move them all the way to there. And I'm going to try and get them into this building here. And that'll give us a nice line of sight over to their side of the map. Now, just bear in mind that there is a hill here. They can't see up the hill, and we can't see down it from up here. But they're going to shoot at anything they can see when they come up here. Ideally, I want to get some kind of ATGM in that building. Now, what is available to us are the TOW 2s. The Dragon ATGMs used to have a longer range. It is very short now. They're still quite good because the Dragon 2 has a lot of penetration damage at 18. However, the range is quite poor. So I'm going to put down a TOW 2, and they are quite expensive. So just bear in mind when you're putting these things down. And we're going to stick them in that building with the sniper. So we've got a little bit of anti-infantry capability with the sniper, and we've got some anti-vehicle capability with the TOW 2. Let's move across to the middle now, because I'm quite happy that that side is just going to sit like that. In the middle, I would like to get some LRS in play. The LRS are a little bit better than the snipers because they have a ground surveillance radar. And ideally, I would like them somewhere in the middle. I think a great place for them would potentially be this building here. So we've got to think about where the best place to put them is. Probably here to get into that building. And we're just going to tell them to try and deploy in there. Usually, if you're on the opposing side of this map, you will try to get into this building, which also has obviously a lovely line of sight. Okay. Now, what about this side then? Well, there are a few different options. There's some nice buildings here we could try and get into with some LRS. Snipers would be risky here because they can start in this area, and they're pretty close, so the snipers would potentially come under a lot of fire. So you want a slightly chunkier squad such as the LRS. The other option is a Bradley. What I'd actually like to do is probably put the LRS in there. And what we want to do is just try and get them to sit in this building. We can always move them into the front building after they've deployed. So that kind of gives us cover in the center there. Now we need to start thinking about this side of the map as well. And there's obviously a road here and a road here the enemy could drive down. We could put the Bradley up here and it would have a lovely line of sight, at least at this side, and I think that's what we'll do. So let's put a Bradley down here. And this recon Bradley, we will just fast move it to here. And it will follow the road round. It won't be able to get up this side bit because it's a cliff, but it'll go around this side and come up there. We just need to keep an eye on it to make sure nothing comes this way and kills it. But once it's in there, it'll give us a lovely line of sight, and it has ATGM missiles to take out any vehicles. Which leaves us with this side here. Now we could bring in another Bradley and stick it in here, which is probably a good idea as it will have a lovely line of sight down that road. And it will also be able to engage anything in these buildings. So let's splash out and call in a second Bradley. Bearing in mind that we need to keep an eye on how much we are spending on all of this. I'm just going to fast move that into there as well. Okay. So we started with 1,500 points. We've now got 885 left. We've spent some on recon, and it's important to have recon, especially since they've now fixed the recon a bit and it's a lot better than it was. We've also splashed out on a TOW-2 missile to sit at this side and try and kill anything that comes up that way. Now we need to think about the middle a bit more. So there's this lovely building here which just screams to me, put a TOW-2 inside. So we're going to stick a TOW-2 down in the little Jeep. And we're just going to tell that guy to deploy in that building. So that's now anti-tank in the middle. So the only other place we don't really have anti-tank is this side here. Now the ranges here are quite short. The TOW-2 missiles have quite a long range, so that's great for this position. But here, maybe we need something that has, up to 2,000 meter range, but isn't necessarily as squishy as that. So a good thing to bring in there is going to be a tank. So we don't need anything too fancy, but what might be a good spend here is buying a command tank. So if I stick a command tank down here, I can tell that command tank to fast move up to the center here, and it will cap that point on the way, and then we'll just have it drive across here and into there. And then it will cap this point for us as well. Straightforward enough. That leaves us 500 points. We need to think about two more things, and that is anti-air and some general line infantry, just to be holding positions. So anti-air is going to be quite important, and on this map, because it's so small and so thin, it's actually really good for us, because we can just call in one piece that can cover the entire map if we have an Eyehawk or similar. So I'm going to put this Eyehawk down, and I'm going to tell that to deploy in here. So that will basically cover the entire map. So if I don't think it will give us the range on it at the moment, but it has a long range. And when it deploys, I'll show you. Okay. That's kind of covering us for most things. The only thing we kind of have to worry about when it comes to aircraft then are helicopters. And maybe having something a little bit further forward. Now, a great thing for that are stingers. So I'm going to stick a stinger down here. And I'm just going to deploy that in this building. And that will allow us to cover that side of the map from any helicopters. And then this far side, perhaps we need to think about the same. So we could stick down another stinger, maybe just here. Yes, sir. And we'll just have that deploy in this building for now, and then we can move it forward. Okay. Pretty happy. So we've got recon, we've got anti-tank, and we have anti-air. So now we just need a little bit of infantry to fill out some gaps. We're not on a sort of infantry-heavy fighting map in terms of lots of buildings built up against each other, so we don't really need the engineers at this stage. What we probably want is something with decent anti-tank capability, which would be for me either the Mech Rifles Dragon or the Rangers Dragon. They're both 9-man squads, they both have the Dragon 2, and then they have a smattering of other weapons. The nice thing about the Rangers is they're special forces, so they do cost a bit more. Mech Rifles Dragon are a little bit cheaper. I don't feel like we need anything too expensive at the moment, so let's go for the Mech Rifles Dragon, because they're pretty cheap. I want to put one at this side, and I'd just like to get them in this tree line here, and they can just help cover by moving them up into here once the game has started. In the center, I kind of want something up in these buildings to support the LRS that are going there. And again, I think I'll send a mech rifle squad. So we'll just stick them at the front of the pile here, just so they're moving nice and fast, and we want to deploy them in here as well. Okay. Now, the only other area which could be at risk of an infantry push, or mainly concerning that, would be here, because the enemy have a tree line that goes all the way up to the center, where we're going to have something in this building. So it would be nice to have something here just to provide some additional coverage. So with that in mind, I'm going to bring in a fairly cheap fire team. They're just 55 points. I don't want anything special here at the moment, because I don't know the enemy is definitely going to send stuff that way. But I would like something to just be in position, ready to move up if I need to. So I'm going to plop that down there, and then I'd like them to deploy in here. And I can move them up if needed. They're a short range squad, so their intent will eventually be to move up here, regardless of whether the enemy has units there. But I'm not in any rush. The last thing I'm going to do with my 30 points I have left is purchase a small supply vehicle. There's no rush in this getting to the front line, so I'll put it a bit further back. And I'm just going to tell that to move up to here. And the reason I'm doing that is my Eyehawk only has 3 missiles. And once it's fired those 3 missiles, it needs rearming. So let's get ahead of the curve and have a supply vehicle ready to go to rearm it. Supply vehicles, very important. Okay. So we've got recon covering the entire map. We've got ATGMs covering the entire map, be that from the Bradleys themselves, for example, on the right, or from TOW 2 squads on the left, and then a tank sort of in the middle. We don't have any more commands down at the minute. We've only got the command tank. So we will have to think about bringing in another command once the game starts rolling. But we don't need to rush. The AI isn't going to instantly win by capping more points than us. So don't stress about that immediately. What we need to do is make sure we've got a solid front line. So let's hit launch battle. Now the beauty of doing it against the AI in single player is I can pause it, I can speed it up. I have total control, which is great for when I'm doing the video, because I can pause it and talk about things. But I've also deliberately played against an easy AI, because, or a very easy AI, because I know it's not going to do a lot. So we don't have to stress. Where the hardest AI would be spamming a lot of units at us, and we'd have to stress out a bit to cope. So we just let everything get into position, and we might move the infantry up a little bit, but we're just going to let it sit, and I'll demonstrate how they can sort of hold the line without, too much intervention against the AI at this level. So the LRS have got there. I'm going to move them into the next building. Takes them a little moment to switch, but there we go. So they've got lovely line of sight that way. Okay, so we've got a hostile coming in here. The LRS can engage them, and the sniper can also engage that light vehicle. LRS is now engaging, and will fire its law at that vehicle, and has killed it and the infantry inside. So, okay. Oh, that's not good. So our Bradley wasn't on attack move, and the Razvedka BMP-2 managed to fire at it first. However, we're lucky in that our Bradley has much better weaponry. The missile it has is a TOW 2, so it is much more accurate. This guy's going to move up. TOW 2 trying to fire that vehicle there, but we want it to fire at this one if we can, because that's a command vehicle, and we want that killed. We're going to move the infantry up into here. There's our command tank moving in as well. Now we've had a couple of ticks, so we've got points. So if I just pause to see where we're at now. So every minute that the game runs, you will get 260 points. We've had 2 minutes, so we've got some points to play with. At the moment, kind of holding pretty steady. What I do want to do is bring in a command for over here so we can cap it. So what we could do is bring in an infantry command. And after you've selected it, if you just press Y on the keyboard, that will tell it that your command is to deploy when it reaches a location. So I've told it that, and now I'm going to tell it to go. Ooh. Oh, because I've paused it, it's not showing up. I apologize. I was just thinking, why isn't it showing up? You'll see it's now flashed up because I've unpaused the game. I'll pause it again. You just need to click and it'll go there. So, enemy has a command in here. It's got a BMP-1 there. If we hit play, our TOR-2 should engage that eventually. It is in range. I guess it's slightly out of line of sight at the moment. I'm just going to move the Fireteam AT-4 up. I think what we'll do is bring in one of these ITVs. So these are basically TOR-2 missile launchers. We've got a T-64 BV coming at this side. The Abrams command is engaging it, and the Bradley is engaging it from the side. Beautiful. So Bradley got a nice hit, and then the M1 got a nice hit as well. Lovely. What I'd like to do is bring in a supply for my TOR-2 here, because that's fired a few missiles. Not much happening here, mainly bits and pieces going on at this point. I'm going to now move these infantry up, as I said I would. I'm also going to bring in another command tank, and I'm going to bring in a chunky M1A1. Just to help out at this side. Our sniper is doing a great job at killing infantry, and our TOR-2 is killing any vehicles that come up that way. So we've got that pretty sorted. The AI's kind of stuck, in all honesty. It doesn't really pose too much of a threat to us. We're going to try and get our infantry up here. And it's probably a good idea to bring in a couple more squads here. Let's bring in those engineers now. And let's bring in one of these lovely Rangers squads. So our command will come in here and clap this. And we can probably think about moving these dragons up into this area as well. We have more points again, so let's bring in a couple of those mech rifle dragon squads. Just deploy them there. This explosion at this side was because my M35 drove over something. Enemy motor Strelky were just destroyed somewhere. I assume in the middle.
If the enemy is in range, so are we.
I'm going to push up our infantry and our LRS recon team. This side's looking pretty solid at this point, so I'm not too concerned. I do notice that there is a tank moving in there. It's good just to keep an eye on what appears. We don't have any recon sort of in the middle here to see quite into this point. The Bradley obviously doesn't have the best line of sight there, but it can see down that road, which is the main thing at the moment. This tank can probably be moved over here to cap this point. So we're going to do that.
Yes, sir.
We'll move up our infantry and recon into this building. Ideally, it would be nice to get a recon unit in this building as well. Lots of missiles going in there. Lovely. Over at this side, we've got that T-64 engaging our Rifles Dragon. The Bradley is engaging the tanks, though. That one's routed. Bradley trying to get some shots off at this one as well. The Bradley's doing a good job here. The Dragon is also trying to engage. Very nice. So lots of missiles going in there. We've got a nice crisscross of fire there. What we don't want to do is bring in some logistics. So we've got an enemy unit there. But as you can see, the range on our Eyehawk is massive. Oh, not good for our Bradley though. It will probably die. That Bradley is very lucky. And so is the Su-25. So that says to me we're at risk, so we will bring in another Eyehawk, and we will bring in a supply for it. But obviously we want maybe a second supply in here to fix that Bradley. These guys are being hit with a mortar, which isn't the end of the world. I'm not too concerned. We have a couple of tanks here, including this spare command tank. We'll keep one command tank back, and we'll push these tanks forward.
What are your orders, sir?
I'd also like to move that LRS into this building, just because then we'll be able to see a little bit more into the edge of this forest. So we currently have a +4, so we're well on the way to a victory, and we've started holding the line everywhere else. This Bradley is routed, so it's running away. What we could do is just tell it to, once it's finished panicking, hopefully it'll move back to where we've told it, which is up here, but we'll see. So I've got a couple more Dragon Squads here, so I'm going to move those up now that they've arrived. We've also got some Engineers and Rangers arrived that we called in before, so we can move those up into this forest area.
Be careful. Enemies nearby.
I've got to bring in a supply vehicle here, just to resupply these infantry that have taken a bit of damage. And we have some supply on the way in here to fix the Bradley, which I'll now just give another command to, and also fix those mech rifles, Dragon. We've got a lot of points. This is called floating points. Versus the AI, it's quite normal to float points. So I'll bring in a couple of expensive tanks just because we can, and I'll bring in a Chaparral, and at this side I'll bring in a Pivad just for some extra air defense. We have to think where we would like to push next. I think we may go for this point. So what we could do is tell that command tank just to come all the way around the back here, and we'll push it from this side. We could also do the 2 tanks we called in. So this Abrams, we could tell that to come over here as well. Maybe a rethink since we're alright at that side, and the same with this one. And I'm going to bring in a large logistics truck just in case we need to repair those tanks at some point. So we're in a pretty nice position. The range on this isn't quite to the edge there, so I'm going to move that up. I'm going to move that Abrams into a nice position, but we're pretty solid right now. Move these engineers up here. Fire Team 84, I'm going to get into this forest here. I'm just going to pull my mech rifles back and get them within that circle so they can get repaired. A lot of the repair is going to go into that Bradley, but the Bradley has done a great job. What we haven't called in so far is any artillery. I haven't really seen a need to. I'd like to move the LRS up into this forest so we can see what's going on down here. Always good to keep your recon moving, and don't be afraid to call in more. So I'd like to call in another squad at this side so we can maybe move up to this area here without risking our Bradley by getting it too close. So we've got another Eyehawk on the field now, so we're pretty secure versus aircraft. That's nearly repaired, so I'm just going to roll it forward a bit, and it will continue to repair as the game plays on. So, enemy units in here. So what we could do, just for a bit of fun, because we got a lot of points, let's bring in an MLRS unit. And we can perhaps hit these buildings, since we suspect there is going to be infantry in there. What we could probably do with it this side is an LRS. And maybe a sniper as well. It never hurts to have extra in terms of recon. Recon is so important. LRS is looking pretty good here. Mech Rifles team looking pretty good there. The Rangers team, or the Fire team I should say, are fine now. Just going to move these 2 squads here and actually move the Fire team back there to kill anything that comes up that way. Oh, the enemy has an artillery unit there and a grad unit. Okay. So that's something to be aware of. Bradley is at high risk here. So we're going to assist by pushing these tanks up. Because the Bradley obviously currently has that routed, thankfully, so that's good for the Bradley. This Bradley's also joining in, so bad position for the AI here. We got a kill on the tank behind it, and then that one is... I think that also died. Air contact here. That's some artillery firing from right there. Air unit coming in. Oh, could see it. Oh, very nice. So he could see our M1A1 Abrams in the center there because there's a Motorizvedka in this building. So we're going to put an end to that. Our LRS has arrived here. I'm going to get those guys to move up. AI is attacking where our units were. Thankfully, they've moved. Okay. So, we know they've got artillery in here. So we just need to be careful. There's an SU-25 AT coming in. They're going to go for these. So I'm just going to smoke both of these off to protect them. Nice, we got the kill on the SU-25. I'm just going to reverse these guys up so they're near this Hemet and get their smoke rearmed. I think it's well worth us bringing in our third Ihawk here and just sticking it in the center. Getting a logistics vehicle in for that one, and then a logistics in for the new one. This one's also out of supply, so let's bring in a big Hemet truck here, because that's supplying both the Bradley and the Ihawk. So we're still on the +4, 4 minutes to our victory, but let's have some fun and let's take this point. So, we need to see what's going on, so let's move up the LRS, and let's move up these snipers into this little tree line. LRS can move up to here. They're not going to see a huge amount, so we might as well get them in that building. Dragon team can stay where they are. Oh! So that's... So you remember I brought this MLRS in. I'm going to fire that here and just hit those buildings. I don't know if there's anything in there, but we might as well utilize it. We could probably do with bringing in... Probably another bomber. I'm just thinking what... We'll probably bring in our other artillery, so the M109s. Rocket 2 coming in there. Not ideal for us, but it has been killed by the Ihawks. So sniper's under fire there. Probably pull that back. Well, we got 3 tanks here, so we're going to push these up in the middle. I'm going to move the LRS up a bit. Just be aware of what's happening in the middle. We did take a bit of damage to the LRS there. We've got some supply here, so I'm going to move that up. So we got this command tank. I'm going to push that up to the edge here. Move the Chaparral up as well. And at this point we can probably move up our TOW 2 and this other TOW 2 vehicle. Our tanks are going to clear this. And the idea is we're going to now move up. So there is a jet coming in, which is probably going to go for our tanks. So we're just going to smoke them all off. SU-25 rocket. Push our infantry up. Pivats can move up a bit as well. Stinger can move up. Oh, our guys here are under quite a bit of fire. They are returning fire, of course, but looking a little bit rough, so we can probably pull them back, move up the supply for them. There's a Razvedka in this building, which we should kill. Lovely. And continue to push up our guys. Now, I called in a couple of artillery pieces. We'll put them on control group 1. You do that by holding control and pressing 1. And I'm going to press 1. And I'm going to target probably back there where this artillery is. Because that's firing at our tanks here and making them panic. Which is obviously not ideal. Now, the AI might move that. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. We might get a kill on it. We might not.
If the enemy is in range, so
Keep
are
the
we.
Stinger moving up. And we can also move up the Pivads. They're quite good at fire support, killing ground units.
As you command, sir. At your orders. Ready
This
to
is
fire.
now completely out of ammo, so we can rearm it with a Hemmet.
Commies, right up. Get in formation. We got a man down.
Need to be careful with this, because it is a command tank.
Hunt for commies.
Going to pull that back. Now that Hemmet I had, I'm going to bring that up here. So we lost our command tank. Not ideal.
Commies, right up. Get in formation. Successful hit. Waiting for instructions.
But we do have this command infantry, so we could move those guys up.
Come on, let's go quick.
Get them in that corner building.
Watch out for the red.
Move up the Bradley into there. We've won anyway. We got there via the points. I lost a few units there from stuff that I either wasn't watching or I just let die. Mainly because I want to point out it's important to know you will lose units. You know, this is a game where you are going to potentially lose lots of units, even against the AI, especially once you play against the harder AI. Not to stress about it. It's just part of the game. You will lose units. I'm someone who tries to lose as few as possible myself, but even I have to accept that sometimes you're going to lose units because you're not watching a particular part of the map, etc., etc. But hopefully this was helpful, and using a division that's sort of in the game as it is now, and probably isn't going to be changed too much now, is helpful and will be beneficial for a longer period than my previous one. But let me know if there's anything else you would like me to cover in a guide video. I'll probably do a couple more of these, increasing the difficulty with the AI and utilizing some other divisions. But let me know if there's anything in particular you would like covered. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all soon.